This wasn't exactly the video I originally planned to make, but I think this is going to be better. Hello and welcome back to the Indie Brew, where we spill the tea on indie games. My name is Caf Chaos and I will be your host for this video, where we're going to be doing something a little bit fun. For our first video of 2025, we didn't want to just do a standard games to watch out for this year kind of thing. So instead, we're going to be doing indie game predictions for 2025. We're pretty much just going to be sharing what our predictions for this year are for the indie game scene, what games we think are coming, what our top game predictions are. So, without further ado, let's dive into some 2025 predictions. Let us get the elephant of the room out of the way. Yes, I do think we will be seeing Hollow Knight Silksong dropped this year. Now, if you have been living under a rock and you don't know what Hollow Knight is a 2D Metroidvania Souls-like game, and it pretty quickly sold a ton of copies because of its ruthless gameplay and intricate systems. Now, the sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong, was announced back in 2019. Yes, like 6 years ago, which is wild. And it's arguably the most anticipated upcoming indie title, to the point where it's actually a running joke, complete with fan theories as to whether or not it's actually going to make a showcase appearance or when it will release. Interestingly, Team Cherry has been inactive on social media since 2023, and we haven't seen a blog or anything posted on their website since 2019. So, strategic? Or were they just sick of getting asked about when Silksong will be dropping? I don't know. But the prediction for Silksong is that I think it will drop this year, but I think it will be a shadow drop. I think they will drop it with no pre-warning, no marketing, no anything. I think it will just drop on like a random Tuesday in April and we will just have Silksong. I don't think they need to do any marketing for this game, because this game is essentially marketing itself just by all of the different theories that are going on. Just last week, one of the main developers of the game changed their Twitter handle to something a little bit random and changed their profile picture to a piece of cake, and that has led to some fan theories. So it's marketing itself. I think it will be a shadow drop, whether they do it just a random kind of day that they just do, or whether they do it as part of like Summer Games Fest or one of the other big showcases, will be seen. But I think we will get it this year, and I think it will be a shadow drop. That is the prediction. The second prediction that we have for 2025 for indie games is that we are going to see the new-ish genre of co-working games. Some people call them idle games. I like to call them co-working games because I feel like that's more accurate than the idle games. But co-working games are going to explode this year. That is the prediction. Obviously, last year we saw games like Rusty's Retirement, Spirit City Lo-Fi Sessions, On Track, and a few other games like that that really included those timers and focus tasks and different soundtracks and things like that. So I think we are definitely going to see a rise in those types of games. We've just seen the release of My Little Life, which is a life sim co-working game that sits on your screen. That one I played the demo of for like 12 hours, which is ridiculous because it was so limited, but it was still so fun, and I absolutely love having that one running. We've also got Tiny Pasture, which is coming out next month, February 18th. And that one is like a cute little animal farming idle game where you basically just have little animals that sit along the bottom of your screen, and you can just breed them and look after them and collect coins and cool things. Another one to keep an eye out on, which I think is set for a 2025 release, is Soggy Beans, which is a fish watching idler game where you basically have like a little fish tank and the fish will swim by and they'll knock this little container at the top which drops beans, which you can collect to buy new decor and cool things for your fish tank. That is just a couple of games that are on the radar. I think there's also some fishing idlers and some other cool games, but I think we really are going to see a massive explosion in that genre, partially because I feel like it's a little bit more accessible to create because you're creating a game that's not so intense in the gameplay aspects, but also because they're really popular. That is prediction number 2, is that we are going to see a rise in co-working games. Now, there is another genre that I think is going to see a lot of love this year, even just based off the games we've seen announced or that we know are coming out this year. And that one is the survival crafter. Now, obviously, survival crafters have historically been very popular. They're one of my favorite genres to play, especially playing co-op with some mates. Now, there's a few in my list to keep an eye on this year, and one of them's actually already come out in early access, and that is Aloft. Now, Aloft is basically an open world survival crafter. It's co-op, but it does have elements of flying and gliding in it that look really fun. We will be doing a let's play of this one, so I haven't played it yet because I'm saving it for the let's play series, and that will be kicking off next week. But Aloft is definitely one to check out if you're wanting something to play right now, and that just came out a couple of weeks ago. In a similar vein, we have Solarpunk, which is set for a 2025 release. That one incorporates airships into the game and has kind of more of a steampunk kind of theme in terms of some of the elements in it, but it could not be further than steampunk in the design kind of style. So that one takes a more cozy kind of approach to survival crafting, but still has that real kind of edgy vibe in terms of having the airships and those sorts of mechanics in it, which looks really interesting. One of the probably most anticipated ones this year, arguably, is Kyora, which is by the makers of Core Keeper. And that one is a 2D open world crafting game. It is sandbox, so it's not as heavy on the survival, but it is very similar to another 2D sandbox crafting game. I'll let you work out which one that is. We've only had a very, very brief sneak peek of this game, so it is a bit hard to judge whether or not it is really similar to other games, but I'm eagerly awaiting that one to release this year. Now, if you want survival crafters with a totally different kind of theme, Voyages of Nira should be on your list. This one is essentially Moana, but a survival crafter. So you essentially have an island, it's all island and ocean based, and you build little boats and you sail between the different islands and you travel around. There's a whole lot of lore and magic in it. There is also a demo out for it, so you can try it now, but it's co-op and it looks incredible already. So that one is definitely one to keep an eye on if you want kind of a different twist on survival crafter. And the last one on my list that I will be watching out for this year is Star Rupture, which is by the creators of Green Hell. So Green Hell wrapped up development last year, and the devs have been working on their next project, which is Star Rupture. Now, if you're familiar with Green Hell, it's essentially like a hardcore survival crafter. And Star Rupture has kind of gone in a totally different direction. So Star Rupture is actually set on an alien planet where you're sent with your co-op players to serve out your sentence for committing a crime. Now you need to build up a base, defend it from the enemy alien creatures that try and attack it. And there's a lot of automation as well. So it's not just survival crafting, it's base building, it's automation. There's also a lot of like weaponry and things in there for you to fight off the creatures. So it looks really interesting and will definitely be an interesting spin on that genre. We've got a lot of cool survival crafters coming out this year, and I'm really interested to see what a lot of these are like. I don't know if survival crafting will ever really lose popularity because it's just so fun to play a co-op game, but I definitely think we will see some really, really great ones added in 2025. Now, if you're anything like me, you've probably got a bit of whiplash from indie game releases over the past, 2 or 3 years. It has just been wild. But I think we might have hit the peak or be close to hitting the peak of those indie game releases. And that is because we're hitting the 5-year post-COVID period. And I think a lot of games started developing during COVID because we were all stuck at home and had nothing to do. And everyone decided, well, let's finally pursue that dream. But I think we're hitting the end of that. I think we'll probably see a lot of one and done games that people create and then they decide that's not for them. But I also think we're hitting that cycle where, 3 to 5 years is pretty average, I think, for an indie game to be developed. So I think we're hitting the end of that cycle, and then these people are starting on the next game. So we're gonna have, hopefully, a little bit of a lull over the next couple of years. I think there was 19,000 games released last year. So we'll see at the end of this year how many have been released, and we can judge together whether or not things are still, or whether we're actually going to have time to breathe this year. Hopefully breathing is on the cards. Last year we saw a lot of genre mashups, which I really liked. I think they're really interesting. So we had a lot of games that decided to take kind of aspects from different genres and mashed them up together. So we had games like Into the Emberlands, which was cozy and roguelite, which is not often done. We had games like Oddsparks, which is cozy and automation done in a totally different way, which was really innovative. And that one also had adventure in there too, which was cool. So that was an interesting mashup. We had games like Coffee Caravan, who mashed up roguelite with management sim, and they had different maps and different combinations. So it was a really interesting year for games, and we saw a lot of innovation in genres, which was really cool. And I think that's going to continue this year. I think we're going to see a lot of different games coming out that kind of are hybrids between different genres, and probably different genres being invented. A great example of that is obviously the co-working games that we saw coming out last year that kind of evolved as a genre, which started with Rusty's Retirement, Spirit City Lo-Fi. We talked about this before. That was essentially a new-ish genre that came to the forefront and has risen in popularity. I think we're also going to see a lot of cozier takes on genres. So for example, Winter Burrow is a cozy survival game, which they're kind of two opposing genres, so this will be really interesting. It's quite anticipated, and I think it will be a really interesting mashup of genres. We've also got games like Rita, which is a combination of word games like spelling and crosswords and things like that, with adventure, which is really interesting, and you adventure around the world and collect the letters. So I think that one is definitely one to watch. I've also been checking out the playtest of All Will Fall, which is a physics-based city builder that essentially combines city building with physics mechanics, so you can't just build wherever you like. You have to like make sure it's all structurally sound, or otherwise it will literally collapse into the ocean. That one also has elements of survival in there because it's set in a post-apocalyptic world. So we're really seeing some innovation in genres, and I think the genre lines have been blurred over the last year, and I think we're going to see more of that this year as people try and become more creative and really push their envelope of what they can do in a game. So I predict more genre bending this year. Now, I know what you really came here for. You really came here to see what I think the biggest indie games are going to be of 2025. And I have a few that I think are going to be very popular this year. So I think one of the top indie games of this year is going to be Tavern Keeper. Now, if you don't know what Tavern Keeper is, it is essentially a tavern management simulation game, tycoon, whatever you want to call it, and it's made by the people that made Game Dev Tycoon. Tavern Keeper is set in a fantasy landscape, and you basically open your tavern, you serve your customers, you have quests, you have different people that you hire, and it looks really great. It was originally set for early access last year, but they've pushed it to this year. I played the demo last year when it was out, and it was fantastic. I wanted to keep playing. I wish there was more in it. So I think it's going to be a very, very successful game this year, and it's definitely one to keep an eye on, particularly if you like tycoon or management sim games. Next on my list of biggest indies is Blueprints. Now this one is a very immersive puzzle game, but it's a first-person puzzle game. It kind of has similar vibes to things like We Were Here, and almost has an escape room type feel. You inherit this mansion, but in order to claim your inheritance, you have to make it to this mysterious room 66. And to do that, you have to go into the house and you have to navigate through the house. Now this might seem simple, but the house layout changes every single day. So essentially you walk into the foyer and you have a couple of different pathways to choose, and when you go through the door you'll be given a choice of 3 different rooms. Now each room has different characteristics, different doorways, different things that are in it, and you essentially need to map out your way through this mansion to be able to find this room. The demo for this was fantastic, so I'm really looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be one of the top games of this year. Another game that was delayed, that was supposed to release last year but got pushed to March this year, is Wonderstop. This one is essentially a cozy tea making game where you are sent to this random tea shop and you have to craft teas. There are hints that you've been sent to this location to be able to work through or process some traumatic experience that you've had. So I think there's definitely going to be some deeper themes and deeper elements to this game, but it looks really interesting. So there is the tea making side where you grow the leaves and you harvest the leaves and you prepare the teas and that kind of thing. But then there's also a really rich storyline that goes with it, with character interaction and being able to wander around. I think this is going to be one that the story hits on a lot of notes, and the graphics and design of the game already looks phenomenal, so I think it's definitely going to be a popular one this year. Next on my list of biggest indies is a tiny bookshop. Now this game essentially sees you manage your own tiny bookshop, which is like a tiny home on wheels or a caravan that you drive around and help people find different books. So this one looks cozy, it looks adorable, it's got the book theme, and I think it's going to be really popular just because it's cozy, it's accessible, and I think the book theme is something that we haven't seen done a lot and will be really, really loved by a lot of people. So Tiny Bookshop, I think, is going to be one of the popular games. The last game on my biggest indies list that I think is going to be really popular this year is Paralives. Now this one is a Sims competitor game, so it is a life sim, very similar elements to the much loved Sims games. You get to control a character, you get to design how they look, you get to build their houses, you get to decorate their houses, and it looks like it's going to incorporate a lot of more intricate systems, which I think is what people always say is lacking in The Sims. So it's got a lot more options for the life mechanics, and also for the building and decorating mechanics. There's a lot more freedom as to how you build and decorate, and it looks really incredible. From the previews that we've seen so far of the game, it looks really, really great. And they've announced it's going to be early access this year. So I think it's absolutely going to be one of the most popular games this year, simply because it's similar to The Sims. And I think a lot of people are going to want to jump on it and see how it differs. So there you have it. That is our indie game predictions for 2025. I think it's going to be an incredible year full of incredible indie games, which we will be covering right here at the Indie Brew and on our website, indiebrew.com.au. So make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay caffeinated.